live shows are just fun, and I love getting weird and, making people feel uncomfortable. It makes my day.
Welcome to the Spencer Whiteout podcast. Rated R.
You have some criminal charges with you, bro. Guess like we're avoiding the shark. Call it leather fetish.
No, great turbo neck guy.
I'll give you a kiss. You give me your number.
That checked out a ton, dude. Tell me you felt it.
We're Americans. We're the ones that are descendants from the 1776 musket-bearing motherfuckers.
Welcome back to the Spencer Whiteout podcast. In this episode, I interview Harvey Freeman of the UK metalcore band Graphic Nature. In this conversation, we talk all about their new metal influences, signing to Rude Records, their debut album, live shows, and much more. Let's dive in. So I want to talk about your band and how I found you guys. I found you guys on Dreambound and Spotify's release radar. It was during the New Skin era. I loved everything I was hearing from you guys. It was just so much new metal aggression. I think when Into the Dark and Bad Blood came out is when I really got hooked. And those two tracks were clearly a cut above the rest. And it was pretty sick to see that those were the lead singles for the new album, A Mind Waiting to Die. We're going to get into that debut album, but I wanted to start at the beginning. So why don't you go ahead and tell me who's in the band and how you guys came together?
It's myself. I play vocals. Pete on guitar, Matas on guitar, Charlie on bass, and Jack on drums. I think Jack, Charlie, and Matt went to the same school but didn't know each other or like hang out in the same groups. It wasn't until later on down the line that they played music together or like hung out at shows and stuff. And they were all in a band previously and had played music before. And I met the boys when my old band, like we played like one show together, and I think I messaged their old band and was like, hey, that was sick. It was cool playing with you. And then like months and months and months went past, and then basically like my other band kind of dissolved. And I just put out a status and was like, hey, like anyone looking for a vocalist, I want to play shows again. And yeah, they messaged me and was like, hey, we need someone to fill in for our old band at the time. If you're up for it, like come out. So I did. We'd done about 6 months of just like playing shows together and like getting to know each other a bit more. And throughout that whole time, they were like, yeah, this band isn't carrying on, like we're not going to be doing this anymore, but basically we have this idea and we've only got a name for it now, but the name's going to be Graphic Nature, and we don't really know what kind of music we want to make yet, but like if that's what you're up for, like let's go for it. And yeah, we did that. We started writing, we wrote a ton of songs, and it took a little while till we got to the sound that we wanted to, but once we hit it, it was like, that's it. Everyone collectively agreed that's the sound we want to do. And I'm pretty sure the first song we done was Grit, and that's the first song that we recorded as well. So recorded, released, yeah, it was a straight sailing from there.
Yeah, that's awesome. What were some of the earlier ideas for what Graphic Nature would sound like? You said it took a few tries to figure out your sound as a band.
Well, because we'd all played in previous bands, and it was like we didn't quite figure out what exactly we wanted to sound like. But we all grew up with 90s new metal. Yeah, new metal was a whole thing for us. I mean, I think we wrote like a more new metalcore type song, and then we wrote like a straight up hardcore song, but it wasn't the GN thing that we wanted to do. Yeah, we tried out like a few different things like that, and it was cool. Like the songs were really good, but it just wasn't us. Like if it come from another band, it would have been cool, but for us, it was like looking the way we do and like the aesthetic that we'd already planned out for the band, it just didn't really, work. And then as soon as we hit Grit, I think Leech, Defect, and one of the others, we were like, yeah, this is it. And we've scrapped a couple songs since then, but we tend to like just work on the ones that we have and perfect them and then work on the next one.
Let's talk about the songwriting process and the lyrical content. You write from a very personal place, and I respect that a lot. And so many of my favorite artists and bands, they're vulnerable in their music. And I think it's the authenticity that really connects with people. So tell us about your songwriting process.
So for me personally, I can't speak for the rest of the boys. I know Pete literally lives in writing mode. Like he's always writing and experimenting with the drum and bass and garage parts of our songs, or just the riffs and everything. His mind's always working. I don't know how he does it, but for me, I'll write when I feel the need to. I find it hard to kind of force it. Like if I give myself time to write something, I can write something like the melody with lyrics that don't really matter, and then I can add proper lyrics in later. But I feel like if I need to get as honest as possible with lyrics and into that kind of place that is needed to project my emotions into the song, I usually wait for something to come to me just during the day. And that might even just be a line, comes into my head if I'm feeling a certain way. And usually every song that we've done has been just stemmed from one line, because that sets the tone of the song. And then I can go, okay, cool. This song's going to be about this thing that I'm going through right now. And then this song can be about another thing. But yeah, I never force it. And that's why I think it comes across so well.
So talk to me about working with Sam Bloor, the producer.
Sam was great, man. Yeah, when we went into the studio, it was like I'd known him for months and years. Like, he's so easy to work with and just knows how to get the correct performance out of you, knows when to stop, knows when your voice is not at its best. So I think when we done the album vocals, I did them in a week and he gave me a break. I think on like the Wednesday, I had a whole day off just to rest my voice and then back to it the next day. But he's awesome. I don't know how his mind works. It just can like produce melodies from anywhere. Like, for instance, at the end of the Downpour, we didn't really have a strong idea for vocal patterning. And yeah, 2 minutes, he was like, why don't you try this? And I was like, okay, cool, we'll try it.
Yeah, that one's really cool because it has kind of like a scream that's like way distant in the background, but then it has like kind of a whisper of the same melody and they're kind of layered.
Yeah, we done 4 different takes for that.
That was a really cool way to harmonize it. So I really love that. Let's talk about the live shows. How have those been so far?
They've been awesome. They're always good, regardless of whether there's like, 200 people in the room or 10. The reception was always great. And like, we're a weird band for people to like get into straight away, because you can tell that people kind of want to get involved, but if you're only seeing Graphic Nature for the first time, you don't really know the songs enough to do so. So like, I'm absolutely cool with just people like, standing in the back, bobbing their heads or whatever. But it used to really get to me when people would just stand around, because I was like, oh, they're not enjoying it. But then I had to kind of take a step back and be like, no, these people are still in the room watching us. They're just taking it in. So that was like a whole thing. But like all the tours that we've done that we've, been main support or been like openers for last year have just been way, way better than we could expect. We're meeting a hell of a lot of new people. We're making new friends. And I think that's the most important thing, is just, having good connections, not in the sense of like, oh, you're going to take me somewhere or you're going to put my band at this point. It's just like having meaningful relationships with people over, a 2-3 week period that continue on after a tour. I think that's special. And yeah, it's awesome. Yeah.
I can totally relate to that, because being a filmmaker, it's like you spend such a short amount of time on set, but it's such a intense like pressure cooker time where you're on set together for a couple weeks and you form these lifelong friendships, and you might not see each other for a long time after that, but it's like the bond is still there. So I can totally imagine being on tour and how much you guys connect.
It's great.
So did you tour with your previous bands? Because I know in another interview you mentioned that you had a couple other bands and you even released a couple other albums. So I want to hear about that.
Yeah. I think my first tour, I was about 17 and I'm 31 this year. So yeah, I've just been touring ever since. It's like the only thing that I know that I'm good at doing, and I enjoy doing it. So I've just kind of stuck at it.
How has performing been though? How is like the music translated live, and has it been challenging for you as a vocalist, just doing these really intense songs night after night?
I used to play in a band called Snakes, and we were like a group of best friends. We just wanted to play music. We worked at the same shop, and at that point I was like, oh, this is easy. Like, this is cool. I can do it, whatever. It's fine. And then when we started doing Graphic Nature, I was like noticing during a set that I'm so unfit. Like, this is really tough to get through a set. So it took a good while to like get my stamina up enough so I can put on the performance for the whole show, and like know when to take my breaks and know when to not overexert myself, and knowing more about not forcing your voice and just letting it project rather than, trying to scream the loudest I can, because the mic's there to do that anyway. So yeah, it's been a huge learning curve, and I'm always learning as well, but live shows are just fun, and I love getting weird and making people feel uncomfortable. It makes my day.
Let's talk about the aesthetics. So the artworks, you guys' videos, we mentioned the gritty teal, blue, and green. Yeah. How did this aesthetic come to be, and like what inspired it?
I think the main inspiration for it was like films like The Grudge and The Ring. They had that very much like bluish tint to it on the horror films. And we just liked the way that it looked. I'm sure there's other influences, but that's the main one that I look at. And I'm like, any screenshot from The Ring could be a Graphic Nature video. So I'm happy with that.
Dude, that is so perfect, because I just saw The Ring for the first time. And dude, your music is probably why I liked it so much, because I was like, this is amazing. Yeah. The aesthetic. I love the aesthetic, and just everything about it was so good. It was scary, dude. It was surprisingly scary. Like, it is a horror film, but it's more of like a horror mystery, and it does unfold pretty slowly, which I like. And so I think the scares work a lot better because they're a little more few and far between.
Yeah, I kind of like horror films like that. Like, I'm not a massive horror film buff, but I find that films back in like the early to mid 2000s. Like those kind of films had like an antagonist and a protagonist. So like, you know, The Ring has the girl that climbs out the TV. And you got films like Jeepers Creepers that has like the scarecrow dude, a villain arc kind of thing. And you know, like the story, and you almost feel bad for like the villain in the film kind of thing. Yeah, you know?
Yeah. How about The Shining, though?
Oh, The Shining's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
The funniest thing is, right, man, my wife had never seen The Shining, and we were moving house literally the day that we got put into lockdown. So we had to just grab all of our shit, move to this new place. So we're in this new building, and I was like, oh, this kind of feels like The Shining. And George was like, oh, I've not seen this before. And I was like, okay, cool. Well, basically, I think this is what's going to happen to me during lockdown while we're stuck in this room. And she was like, what do you mean? And then we watched it, and she was like, no, because that's actually scared me now. And I
That's
was
like the worst movie to watch.
Yeah, it's just isolation and just going nuts. But yeah, it's a great film. And again, that's not really to me, it's not like a scary film. Like you've got the bit in the bathtub with the woman in. Like that's the only like jumpy, scary bit for me. But I like the eeriness of it.
Or like when they pan over to the mirror and then it says red rum and then it's backwards and it's murder. Yeah. That was pretty scary too. That. So talk to me about the album cover, because I did want to ask about that. Yep. I love the album cover. It's very haunting. My sister even pointed out that it's slightly off center, like she's slightly sitting to the side and whatever. Yep. And I want to know who that is on the album cover, how that one came to be, and a little bit about that.
That's an unknown person. I think we used a picture from the Killing Floor video shoot that Pete took behind the scenes, and then we ran it through that AI thing to make it more fucked up.
How so?
I don't know. Pete's the one that deals with all of this shit. I think he was just like typing in like hospitals and like weird eerie shit, and it came out like this, and it's way better than I would have done. It's
an album cover that sticks with you, and it evokes a lot of emotion. Like when I see that, it just perfectly fits the album title, A Mind Waiting to Die. Yeah. They're just sitting in this chair staring off into nothing.
Yeah, I love it. It's awesome.
Yeah.
But again, if you can support artists. We needed something done, so AI worked for us at the time. But yeah, I have to say that because, you know, AI art isn't real art in a sense, is it?
Yeah.
It's taken from...
That's a whole nother discussion.
Yeah, let's not get into that.
What was it like when you finally held that CD or the vinyl in your hands for the first time?
Surreal, because I'd released albums before. My first band was on CD, and then the one that I was in, like 2 bands before this one, 3 bands even. We released a vinyl for that band, but I was not the original member that wrote the drums for that album. When I joined that band, I was about 2 or 3 weeks away from going into the studio to record the album. So I had to learn the drums as quick as possible. It was cool to see like something that I'd worked on is on, you know, a pressed vinyl, but in the same sense, it wasn't my work because I still had to like almost replicate the drum beats that were already there, but add my own flair to it. So having a record where I'd been there from the very beginning, we've wrote everything together. Everything is directly from us. There's been no one before us. Like it's all the 5 of us writing this music. That was really cool to see. And to just, you know, have something that's like other people are going to own this. Like it's not just going to be me. Like that was cool. And yeah, I even bought a record from Brood Records just because I wanted it. Like I didn't expect him to send it to me for free or anything, but I was just like, I just want this. So yeah, that's mine.
So let's talk about signing to Rude Records and how did that process go and what have they done for you guys?
Rude came about, I think 2 years ago, 2 or 3. Oh, that makes me feel old. All right. I think it came across because we'd initially sent out like the EP demos to labels that we wanted to have on. We obviously wanted to send it to like the biggest labels we could in just the hopes that they'd take us. And then we had conversations with our manager and it was like, look, if you even get taken on by these bigger labels, you're not going to be the most important band on this label because there are so many other bands that are way, way, way bigger than you, you know? So when we approached Rude, I think Rude were the only people to get back to us, and then we had a meeting and collectively we're just like, these guys are awesome and it's like a little family. Like these guys are rad. Like we can chat whenever. There's an open WhatsApp group. We have meetings all the time. Ideas are being bounced between each other and it's like a collective agreement of what we think Graphic Nature should be and what we should do. And yeah, they've helped out. Obviously with a label you get funding for your records, which is a hell of a lot of help because I'm still in debt from, you know, recording other albums. So to have that funding has been so helpful. And the fact that like, you know, for instance, I woke up the other morning and I saw our album is in a stand in Shibuya in Japan. And it's just a stand.
Wow, really?
Not even a rack with just, you know, Graphic Nature CD. It's a fucking stand that says Graphic Nature. It's got a picture of us. And I'm like,
How did that happen?
I have no idea. I just saw it on Twitter. Like Tower Records themselves posted it, and I was just like, are we like big in Japan or something? Because that's cool.
That's amazing. Congrats, man. You made it. You made it to Japan.
That's big for me.
Now you just got a tour over there,
right?
Dude,
it would be the best.
I hope you guys tour the US at some point. I'll be first in line to see you guys when that happens.
Yeah, I mean, we've had no offers yet, so whenever that comes up, I'm sure if we can afford to do it, definitely we'll be out there.
Do you have any favorite memories from touring or from being on the road?
Yeah. It's like dumb things though, like... I think when we were in the studio, we put like too much oil in our van, so we had to wait a few hours to get it drained. But we all kind of collectively lost our minds because we were sat in like a supermarket car park. It was just so funny because we were just young and, you know, just stupid, just laughing at, like, not funny to anyone else, but it's funny to you at the time.
Just stranded.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then tour is always funny, but I can't even pinpoint anything that is super funny. It's just, they're like... from a completely different world to me. Like they all live in Kent, which is like, I want to say it's more of like a rural area to where like I live in London, so they've got their own language between them.
How far of a drive is that?
It's about an hour away, like, so it's not even far. But yeah, when I first joined the band, they were talking in like this lingo that I had no idea. All of the slang that they know, I'm like, this is completely new to me. And it was so funny to me. I don't even understand why it was so funny, because it's not even that funny. But to me, I'd never heard like it before. And I was just in the back of the van, like with these guys that I barely knew, just crying with laughter. So yeah, they're a good bunch of dudes. Like, I love them.
That's awesome. So at one point, I think you said that you think maybe you guys put out a few too many singles before putting out the album. Yeah. I want to get your thoughts on that.
I think it's because I'm like old fashioned in the sense of, I think, you know, leave them wanting more and just let it air a bit. But I think in the day and age that we are, like, content is key because of Instagram and TikTok and everything. Like, everything is very fast, and if it doesn't grab your attention straight away, you're on to the next thing. So for instance, Into the Dark and Bad Blood as a double single, I was like, no way, we're not putting out a double single, because that's like a wasted song, essentially, because in this day and age, people will listen to 2 minutes, if you're lucky, on a video that's like 8 minutes long, especially if they don't know you. But it went well, so I was like, okay, cool, that's fine, we'll try another thing. And then we released White Noise, which done well, then Killing Floor, and then Headstone was last. Headstone was the one that I was like, we found out like a week before that we were due to have another single, and I was like, we've just put out Killing Floor in November, and they were like, yeah, it goes out next week. And I was like, what? So I literally had like a day and just filmed the whole video with myself, because I think Pete was in Thailand, like Jack was in hospital. So yeah, it was just me, and we done the video, but it worked. It was cool. I just think maybe for the next album, like, I'd like to release a few less singles, or if we have long album, I won't mind putting out like 4 or 5. But yeah, some bands, it's quite a theme these days where people will do like a 10-track album. And if you're putting out 5 songs out as singles, and then one of those songs on the album is an intro, one of them is an interlude, you've only got 3 songs left. So it kind of rubbed me the wrong way, in the way of like, I didn't want to show our whole hand before someone had the album, you know, ready to listen to in full. Yeah. But it's been good. I can't deny that. The reception has been awesome. Like, you know, I haven't actively seen any bad press or feedback from it. So that's good. Maybe I'm not looking hard enough, but yeah, it's been great.
I think there's enough surprises and twists and turns in the album. Like, when I put it on, I didn't feel like I was gypped or like, oh, there's not any more. You know, I felt like there was still enough, even with hearing all the singles. And I just like that there's cohesion to the sound, but there is a variety as well. Yeah. And there's some different interlude tracks. There's a Twin song, which has that amazing piano lo-fi beat going. Then the last song, which has some clean melodies. So there's a lot in the album. I loved it, man. I think it's great.
Yeah, man. A Twin was like the wild card. We wrote it before, and then I didn't like what it sounded like, so I rewrote the lyrics the night before we went into the studio, because I had sleep paralysis, and just wrote it like 4 a.m. But I wanted it to kind of come across as like, you know, like those film noir films where like dudes like sat in the detective office, and he's like smoking a cigarette, and he's like narrating what's happened, and like how this town's
just
like
contemplating life.
Yeah, how the town's gone to shit, and like all of this stuff. I wanted to come across like that, like someone's reading from a book. And yeah, it was like a risk that I was willing to take, and it seems to like impact the way a downpour hits after you've listened to that song, because we have the snippet of a Twin in the outro, I think, of Downpour. So it's like a 2-in-1. Like, you have to see the prequel before you see the main film. Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, that's good. So I want to talk about some of the tracks individually. We don't have to go through all of them, but Sour has a really sick drum and bass kind of electronic breakdown in it. And I thought that was really unique and it was different and unexpected.
Yeah.
So how did that one come to be?
I think we initially had just like a breakdown. And I don't know if it worked or we wanted to try something else. But I remember Pete like writing something and he was like, Harv, like just trust me on this. I think this was going to work. And I listened to it and I was like, dude, are we really going to do that? Or should we just like play it safe?
And it's the first track on the album too. Yeah. It's kind of a gutsy move. Technically the second track, but
in studio it was like way more than it is on the album. We toned it down because in the studio
just
like
full Skrillex, dubstep,
it's like
EDM.
Over the fucking top. And like you can just hear me laughing in the back because it's so stupid. But once we toned it down and like got the correct amount into it as well as like guitars and drums, it was just like I can't imagine the song without it. So yeah, I can't wait to play it live as well.
And then you bring the guitars back in after that too to just end out the song on a strong note.
I think those guitars were like the initial breakdown, and then we just extended it.
Yeah, that's sick. Into the Dark and Bad Blood were the songs that really hooked me on you guys, and the ending breakdown of Into the Dark is just mind-blowing, dude. Like it's still one of my favorite parts on the album.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites. It's quite a personal track. I rewrote it in the studio, like from scratch. I didn't like any of the lyrics that I'd written, so we rewrote it in about 10 minutes, and then I just recorded the whole thing. The vocal booth in Sam's studio is like this mystical dimension of influences and inspiration. I don't know what it does. There's probably some kind of curse on it or something, but yeah, it just helped me get into the mindset to write the song. And yeah, it's just about how drugs can affect anyone and you know how you kind of become a different person by doing so, and how it can break relationships, it can break friendships. It's mostly because like my parents split up when I was about 11, and I get on with like both of them. They've been so supportive to me in my musical endeavors basically since I was a kid, but like drug addiction was a big part in that. So the way that I like to see Into the Dark is like a person that's talking to themselves in the mirror with the drugs in front of them. I know it's really dark to say, but the whole fuck you, I'm fine without you thing is like, you know, I don't need that to carry on with my life. Like I used to depend on it a lot. Before I met my wife, I was very dependent on drugs and alcohol to like act like a normal person. If I was out, I very much depended on like, oh, okay, cool. If I'm going out, I need to have this thing to then allow me to just be a person that can speak to another person, because I can't normally do that. So yeah, don't do drugs. It's stupid. Basically.
Well, I'm glad you came out the other side, man.
Oh, yeah,
and
for sure.
Now we got this great album. We're having this great conversation, dude. So talk to me about Bad Blood, because that's my favorite one. And dude, I seriously can't tell you how catchy that song is to me, because I sometimes will wake up and I'll hear the ending of that song like stuck in my head. I'm like, dude, this song is so catchy.
We used to open with it. It's such a good opener because like there's no like build up to the song. It's like 4 count in and I'm good to go.
It just makes you want to jump up and down, dude. Like It just has the perfect beat.
It's so fun to play, man. That's about my frustrations with being in a band. I think that's why it comes across so angry, because I've been doing it for so long. It's kind of like, when is my big break gonna come? Because I've seen so many of my friends and like others that have got it quicker, and I didn't really understand like how that worked. And it was like, you know, I wanted to at that point just give up music and do something else, but I can't, because it's the only thing I know how to do and I love it so much.
That kind of love-hate relationship that every artist has with their craft.
Yeah, exactly.
And the ending of that song, it's really similar to Hot Dog by Limp Bizkit, right?
Yeah.
I didn't catch that until you mentioned it in another interview, and I was like, dude, that's probably why I love that so much, because I love Limp Bizkit. So
I only noticed after we got out of the studio, because I was based my vocals on the drum pattern rather than the guitar pattern. So when I based it on the guitar pattern for the end of Bad Blood, and it's got that I was like, oh cool, I can do like a kind of, I don't know if syncopation is the right word, but just like, you know, do a pattern like that, amplifies every whip on it. And then I think I was listening to Limp Bizkit and I was like, that sounds like the end of Bad Blood. Oh shit, what have we done? But
it's awesome.
I think that's so funny. I love it. And yeah, we played a show to like no one, you know, somewhere in the UK, and I just sung Limp Bizkit at the end of it because.
Did you really?
Yeah.
You're like, kiss my starfish, punk.
It goes so well.
That's good.
Yeah, inspiration has to be taken from everywhere, you know, so.
And then Headstone, I really liked because it has record scratching in there, and it has like a drop tuning breakdown at the end, which was a nice touch, and that was different.
Yeah, Headstone's cool,
That was
man.
a good one.
Again, that's one of my favorites. It was one of my favorites before we even had the masters back. We got the first mix and I was like, yeah, this is the single I wanted to put out first. But yeah, we didn't. It's just about mental health and like, suicide. Like, luckily it's never been something that I've actively wanted to go ahead with, but definitely the thoughts are there. So putting that into a song was tough because I was worried about how it would come across to people that are suffering with that same kind of thing. I didn't want it to be a song that's triggering to anyone, or, I didn't want it to bring up any kind of past thoughts that they'd had before in their lives. But then again, I didn't want to censor it to the point where it was like you're being handheld for the whole way. I just wanted to be as honest as possible. And I think that's why it came out so great, is because it's one of those ones that I'll play my friends and they're like, are you good? Are you okay? I'm like, yeah, man, I'm cool. It's fine. The song's great though, isn't it? It's just one of them things.
Well, yeah, it's like sometimes you just got to get that stuff out onto the page and then you're fine. And then it's not in your head swimming around causing problems anymore.
Yeah.
So closing out this conversation, I want to see if you have any favorite lyrics from the album.
Favorite lyrics? Let me scroll down my lyric list. I'm always kind of drawn towards Headstone just because of the lyrical content of it. I think it's probably going to be White Noise though. And it's not even one of my favorite songs off the record, but it's so honest. There's I think it's like a pre-chorus thing. It's just give me some space to hide somewhere else that isn't my mind. Please give me some space to ride this shit out. It's kind of like when I have a panic attack, I just need somewhere on my own that isn't surrounded by other people, and ideally somewhere that isn't inside my own head, just to get over the hump of I'm having a panic attack and I need to just calm down. That's a real favorite of mine just because it's literally what I have to do. I just need to get through it. Yeah, probably that one. Or like, it's not even a lyric, but the lyrics in Twisted Fear, when it goes into that, does like a repeated lyric, and it's like, I say, I can't save me from this. And it's like, that bit I think's cool. Doesn't even mean a hell of a lot. It just sounds cool.
Yeah, man, it's hard to pick. There's a lot of highlights on this album.
Yeah, I've never really thought about it. I don't think I've ever been asked. But yeah, maybe I should do more research into my own lyrics for the next time we speak. But yeah, they're the two that stick out to me of just the ones that I enjoy to listen back to, I think.
Yeah,
man.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today. What's next in 2023 and where can people follow you?
Next in 2023, we got a headline run in April across the UK. Our first show of the year is this Friday, which is at a club in the UK called Face Down.
That's when this podcast is coming out.
Yeah. It's a club that I've been going to since I was 18 to 24. Special place in my heart, I think, because it's just the best alternative club in London. So to be offered to play the main stage there in Scarlet in King's Cross, which is an awesome venue, it's gonna be sick.
Yeah.
We've got Download Festival, we've got Collision Fest.
That's a big deal.
Oh yeah, the year's gonna be cool. I think we haven't got any support runs yet. We haven't got any other things that we can announce just yet, but what we have announced is gonna be cool. You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. Sometimes I do a live stream on Twitch. So if you want to hang out with me for a couple of hours and just listen to some GN or chat about video games or movies, I'm there. It's good fun.
Right on, man. Well, I'll put the links to your guys' stuff in the description.
Cheers, man.
So thank you so much for taking the time, man.
Absolutely.
It's a great conversation.
Yeah, dude, it's been great. I've had a lot of fun.
Thank you so much for tuning in. I want to welcome all the new listeners to the podcast, and I want to let you know that I've got a lot more band interviews coming out soon, in addition to the normal run of comedy show episodes I put out. So be sure to subscribe, follow me on Instagram at Spencer Whiteout. Stay tuned, stay hyped. That's a wrap.
And that's it.